that Adam and I are going to talk about. So as you're watching live, you get the kind of before it all starts kind of a thing. In fact, just a few minutes ago, I should have been recording actually. You gave me a tour of what was going on behind the scenes there at
Yes.
Focus on the Family.
Yeah, it's a very, very exciting farm of taupe cubicles. Doesn't get much more exciting than that.
you know, maybe we should. Maybe it's a good thing I didn't show it because we could create in the mind's eye
Yeah.
anything. Deep inside the mountains in Colorado. In a secured location,
Yeah, no,
right?
it's a beautiful spot. If you've ever been here, Focus is up on a little hill. So if you're near a window, the views are spectacular. But yeah, no,
Right.
it's a beautiful spot if you've ever been here. And it looks like every other cubicle. So,
Hey, not so bad. Nothing wrong with that. So, okay, Adam, we are just seconds from beginning. I appreciate it. What I really like to do is get things kind of set up so everyone can see us live. So we are
yeah.
broadcasting on YouTube. We're on Facebook. If you go to My Michelle Live, the Facebook page, and you can go to www.mymichellelive.com, and I'm seconds away from getting it live streamed there. Usually one of my people do that for me, but there's no people today. I am the people.
You are peopleless.
I am the
People, people light.
I am the people. Yeah, you kind of wear a lot of hats sometimes, right? All
Gotta have a hat.
right,
Gotta,
so
gotta have the hat.
gotta have the hat. So there we go. It is done. We're gonna publish that, and let's get going, shall we?
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time as we start getting ready. Looking forward to the weekend. We're going to get you plugged in.
Let's get you plugged in.
Now, you can hear that okay, right? Because
I
I'm the
can.
people today. So I'm the
I know.
engineer, I'm the interviewee. I don't know what all I am, but
Your hat
we're
almost looks like a little engineer's cap, so
there
that
you
fit.
go.
Like the
I am
chains,
here
the
with
ones they wore.
Adam Holtz getting you plugged into the movies for the weekend. There is a lot to talk about, and there's not a lot to talk about, strangely enough, Adam.
True story. Yeah, I mean, um, obviously, I think the biggest thing this week, Michelle, is Zack Snyder's Justice League. And, you
Okay.
may have people saying to themselves, wait a minute, didn't we have Justice League like 4 years ago? Yes, we did. But it was not the Justice League that the people wanted. So we have another one. Do you want to hear that story?
Yeah, I do. I'm interested because we've got the DC versus Marvel.
Right?
And Marvel has absolutely dominated some of the
Right.
DC films. While they're big budget and all, I get it. Um, they just, I don't know what it's been. Before we get into what is happening with this new Justice League, I want to talk about that just really briefly, Adam.
Yeah.
Um, the tale of two universes and why
Yes.
one flourished and the other kind of floundered.
Well, I have ideas about that. I mean, they
Yeah,
may
let's
not be
take
the
it on.
right ideas, but I can talk about that. Here's my theory, and it's a two-part theory. So, after Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy came out and sort of it kind of obliterated our idea of what a superhero movie can do and can be. And one of the ways it did that was it was pretty dark. It was gritty. It felt like a kind of superhero movie that we hadn't seen before. And DC and Warner Brothers took that template, okay, here's what people want. They want darkness. And the Lego Batman movie came back later on and made a joke out of it. The Batman character says darkness.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's um, and so I digress, but I think that one of the things DC did was they tried to copy the vibe visually and aesthetically that Christopher Nolan had established, but the story wasn't as good. Like the
Okay.
Dark Knight trilogy is incredible, not because it's just grim and gritty, but because Christopher Nolan knows how to make a movie and it was a great story. And so I think that they did that and they ended up making Superman darker. They made all of it darker, but the story wasn't that great. And then the other thing that happened was Avengers came along and reset things again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Marvel shows we
Exactly.
can do all these individual movies with these heroes, and then we put them all together into one big group. And that's what they tried to do with Justice League. And it just didn't work. And again, I would say the core issue was the story didn't work. The story worked with everything Marvel did. There's not a bad story in the mix. Now, you may have your favorite Marvel movie. Some are a little bit better than others, but I don't think most people ever walk out of a Marvel movie and think, well, that was terrible. But most of the DC movies I've gotten done watching, with the exception of Wonder Woman, which I would say is the one big exception recently, and maybe Aquaman, but even Aquaman was pretty forgettable. It's like,
No, I love Aquaman. No,
the
I
stories just aren't. But I
love it.
love Jason
Love
Momoa
it.
as Aquaman. It works because of his characterization, you
Yeah.
know. So I think that's the problem with the DC universe is it's too derivative. They're playing catch up. They're trying to copy other things that have been successful, and they're compromising some of their core franchises and characters in the process.
Okay.
You've talked with Paul Acey before, and Paul is a Batman expert. He's written a book on Batman. So one of his criticisms of Justice League was Batman doesn't use guns. That's the most un-Batman thing ever. So anyway, that's my theory.
Okay, and my theory goes along with that. The dark factor is
Yeah,
just it's just over the top. We
it's over
we
the
can we
top.
can take just a little bit darkness without and any kind of negativity without some kind of really redeeming factor makes you
Right.
walk out feeling lopsided.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing: the characters itself, and we've talked about this on other evaluation type entertainment reviews about this, is that the Marvel characters were relatable and imperfect.
Right.
The DC characters come as these like Wonder Woman,
Right.
completely unrelatable, flawless, and
Flawless.
right. She even had great fashion, forward-thinking fashion in 1984. Whenever, what was it,
Right.
1984? The every flaw, and so it's unrelatable. The characters aren't interesting when they're
No, they're not.
flawless. You know,
No,
um,
they're not. And I would say in some ways, if you want to go back through comic book history, that was Stan Lee's genius in the 1960s. You had Batman and Superman with DC, and Stan Lee came along and, he did stuff like Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four, these very human characters that had flaws. And so I think that just goes back to the core sort of foundational DNA of both of these brands, whereas Superman was supposed to be like a god man. Uh, the Superman story is super interesting. We can talk about that some other time. But yeah, I just think Marvel typically has better characters, and DC's tried to deal with that by making their characters darker. But you got to have more than that. That's not enough to make a character interesting.
there you go. Well, let's talk about this new Justice League, shall we?
Yeah. So Justice League came out in 2017, and fans hated it, and critics didn't like it much either. And what happened was director Zack Snyder, his daughter died about halfway through the production, and he just felt like he could not continue to helm that production. And Joss Whedon, who actually was the director of the Avengers, came in, and only about 25% of that film was stuff that Joss Whedon actually filmed, but they had a ton of story. People hated the way it was edited. They didn't like what Joss Whedon did with it. And so for 4 years, the DC faithful have been saying, come on, Zack, let's finish the job. We know you have footage you haven't used. And at first, they kind of DC kind of blew that off, but it didn't go away. And really, the internet fan base played a role here in convincing Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers to, basically do a redo on this. And so now we have Zack Snyder's Justice League, which clocks in at 4 hours long. This is
What?
a
Are you
monster
kidding me?
movie.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
4 hours.
I don't know if I can do that
No,
in
you
one
can't.
sitting.
Well, you'll also have to have HBO Max to do that, which you may or may not have. And what we've done, if you know anything about Zack Snyder, he's done a lot of really gritty stuff in the past. He did the 300. He's done more R-rated stuff than not R-rated stuff. And this one gets pushed into an R rating because of 4 or 5 F-bombs and some really graphic violence that you wouldn't see in a fairly sanitized superhero movie. So, and you get an ending that, if anything, is even more hopeless and grim than the first movie, which was not a happy movie, let me tell you.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Okay. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, you got better ways to spend 4 hours of your life. Honestly, go watch Infinity War and Endgame back to back, and you'll still be ahead on this. You could watch probably all of WandaVision in the time it takes to watch this movie. So,
Yeah, that's my question. Why didn't they make it into a mini series? I think a
I
lot
don't
of
know.
people really enjoyed WandaVision.
Yeah,
It brought in a lot of viewers. People were excited about it. Who can get excited about sitting for 4 flipping hours? I mean, the upside is, if you're not watching it in theaters, you can pause, get up, move your lazy hiney off of the couch and go for a
yeah,
walk or something, get the
yeah.
juices rolling. But maybe if I've been flying recently, maybe if I were on a flight and it was a 4-hour
And
flight,
to Hawaii.
yeah. I don't know. So,
Yeah. No, I just think it's a grim story, and I could deal with the length. Like, I love the extended versions of all the Lord of the Rings movies.
okay.
But like I said, there's got to be a payoff. And there's no payoff here. I mean, if you're a hardcore DC super fan, you're going to want to watch this just because you'll feel compelled to check the box that you watched it. But that's people that I think would even want to watch this movie. I have no interest in it at all, in part because I didn't think much of the first one. I'm like, well, the first one wasn't great. Why would I want to watch another version that's twice as long?
Right, right. Okay. Well, there you go. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
There you
It's
go.
it's kind of new. I get it, but there are some other things that are worth a see. What we always do when we talk with Adam is we talk about the our recommendation of, yeah, you should probably see this, and our don't even bother. So we'll get there, but first I wanted to take on some Oscar nominations because it's Oscar
Yeah.
season.
Yes. Oscar nominations came out this week. I don't have the list right in front of me. Do you have that pulled up, Michelle? And
I think I do. I wanted to
Best
talk
Picture
about
list?
Best Picture
Yeah,
because if you go to pluggedin.com, and I'll put a link, Paul Acey, who we had just mentioned,
I
um,
can open that up really fast.
he talked about some of these films: The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, Promising Young Women, Sound of Metal, The Trial of the Chicago Seven. 8 films. And he said of the
Those are
8
all the ones
films,
nominated for Best Picture.
yeah, Best Picture, of these films, he said 6 you can actually sit down. You can have access to right now. You can
Right.
watch. One of them you will have to buy. A couple of them you have to subscribe to, like Prime or whatever. But they're viewable at home, and most of them are in the solid PG 13 category, that's totally navigable, and all the information that you would need on these films is at pluggedin.com, which is pretty
Yep.
groovy because as a family, and even I was again traveling, and so I want to find some movies I could download. I don't want to waste my time on something that I'm going to go, I can never get those 2 hours or 4 hours back.
4 hours back,
Yeah,
right?
so being able to look at it and go, oh, yeah, okay, and get a little more information. Sometimes on the content that you don't want your kids to see, you don't really see a lot of that information out there. So that's one reason I appreciate the plugged in movie reviews. But seems like most of these films were, and in fact, Minari was nominated for the Pluggies, which are the Plugged
Yeah.
In Movie Review Awards.
Yeah, and so was the father actually. Those were the
Ah,
two
indeed.
of the eight nominees that Paul really focuses on here. And Nomadland, if you take out one scene of Frances McDormand floating really nakedly in a lake, um, Nomadland doesn't have much content either. I mean, it gets its R rating for that one scene. And Paul has said, I have not seen Nomadland, that it's not a particularly erotic scene, but there you go. It's
Okay,
there.
okay, okay.
But Minari probably would be my pick of the week if I can jump ahead a little bit, just because it's such a great movie about a
It's
Korean
brilliant.
family that moves to Arkansas, and the father wants to basically start a new life as a farmer. The wife is not so sure that trading Southern California for rural Arkansas is going to be great for their family. And so she says, we can do this, but we need to bring my mother-in-law along from Korea. And grandma is just a foul-mouthed hoot, but not so foul-mouthed that you feel assaulted by it, but more just like, huh, I didn't think grandmas were supposed to talk like that, you know? And we did an interview with the director. The director is a Christian, and there's some faith elements in the film.
Some beautiful faith elements, not in
It's a
your face
really
faith
beautiful film.
elements.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Some beautiful faith elements, not in your face faith elements,
Right.
but living
Exactly.
it out. You might. This is a catchphrase in the evangelical world. If you're listening, it's called lifestyle evangelism, and that's
Right.
just where this is who I am. This is what I
Yep.
believe, and it's part of my everyday life. I'm not here to invite you to coffee so that I can, sign you up like a multi-level marketing thing.
Right. Drop the
I'm
four spiritual laws tract on your head.
yeah, I'm just here living this out because this is who I am, and I love you regardless. This is my life. My life speaks. It's Saint Francis of Assisi's. Preach the gospel, and if necessary, use words.
Words.
So that's what I felt the spiritual element of Minari was. Tell me more about what the director had to say.
Well, he was really at the end of his rope in terms of his career. And he decided he was just going to make a movie the way he wanted to make it without focus grouping it, without trying to convince the studio. And I think in our culture, we see authenticity as a really good value. But the reality is, companies making movies, even though they might give lip service to authenticity, they want stuff that's going to be successful. And so oftentimes we just get derivative, warmed over rehashes of something else that already worked, right?
Yes.
And then somebody comes along and makes a story and says, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to do it my way. This is the story I want to tell. And we get this remarkable movie. I feel like, I don't know that it's going to win. I think there's some other politically themed movies in this list that may have a better shot because
Of
that's the climate
course, that's the
right
way the
now.
Oscars are,
Yeah.
but the fact that it got nominated is spectacular. And
Yeah.
yes, when you watch it at first, you're going, I don't know.
Wait, what?
But
Well, and
it,
it's subtitled too. So if you're not used to subtitles, it's very strange because it feels like a foreign movie made in America. It's kind of
yeah.
jarring in that
But it
respect.
does have a lot of English in it as well.
It does. It
It's
does.
not
Yes,
all
that's true.
subtitles.
No, it's
However,
not all.
what I don't know, you watch it for a few minutes and you're going, I don't know, but pretty soon the story just brings you in. And Adam said it best. Authentic. It feels very real and very authentic. There
And
are,
it's based on his
oh, I think you just cut out just a
father
little bit.
who
It's
went
based,
through a pretty it's kind of a love letter to his father, who went through a very similar experience. So it's
Interesting.
biographical.
Okay. Okay, so here to me too, Minari, so worth the see if you haven't seen it. Um, there's a underlying theme that again isn't in your face that I'd really like for our audience. Pay attention to this theme, and it is we have this idea that has been planted in our heads and drilled into us from media and politics, that these red states, these religious people
Mm,
are a bunch of redneck racists. But you see what, having just visited the South, I was in Houston where we did our last interview. I was in Narlands. But
mhm.
being in the South, you see a very different vibe. It isn't a racist vibe. It's a very genuine vibe. People take on people regardless. You know, you're judged based on how you act, not
Right.
necessarily the color of your skin. I think there was one little scene in Minari where a little boy asked the Korean kid, "Why is your skin so dark?" Now, would
Yeah.
people come unglued from that? Why would you? You know, it was a
Right.
genuine question, but they were friends. You know, didn't really
Right.
matter. So you see what life is really like. Minari is a great film to watch. Some of these other films, anything else from the Oscar nominations that you would recommend, Adam?
Well, we talked about it fairly recently, but The Father with Anthony Hopkins is a movie about dementia, and I think we
Oh,
touched on it maybe
right.
even last week. So I don't want to spend a ton of time
It's
rehashing
not a
that. But
feel good movie,
it's
but
not a feel good movie, but it's also sometimes you feel like directors make movies for the sake of making a downer movie. This is more, we're taking a very, very poignant and detailed and intimate portrait of a really hard thing.
yeah.
And hard things are hard to look at, but I think it's a great example of a difficult subject that's treated with tenderness and dignity and beauty. And, um, if you have gone through that as a family, somebody close to you, it's so jarring. And so I think a movie like this, it gives you space to have a conversation, especially if
Yep.
that's where your family is at.
And last week I likened it to Words on the Bathroom Wall, which is a young a man,
Yes.
a teenage type kid dealing with schizophrenia. Even the disturbing, problematic kind of a thing are all tied in to the very real issue. So it's things that
Yes.
someone would experience in real life, and it gives a great insight. It's educational, you could say, in
Yeah.
an entertaining realm. So, having said all that, I think it's time for us to take on the must sees and the stay away froms. And I'm going to start with the stay away froms. Again, traveling, I had lots of time to watch some films. And one thing that I fast forwarded through to see if it was worth a while, they said it's the #1 streaming movie in America. It's on everywhere you can watch television or see an ad. Coming to America 2 is being promoted, and I gotta
Yeah.
tell you, it was as stupid, as foul, almost as foul, uh, just not worth the see as the first one. And you may have found the first one funny. I don't know. Back in the day, if you go back and watch the first one, you go, "What on earth was ever funny about that?" I didn't. I didn't like it the first time, so I come a little jaded.
Yeah. Eddie Murphy, I mean, he's so naturally funny, and yet there's so much content that you have to wade through. And it sort of layers on top what I was saying earlier. There aren't any real original ideas here. Let's, retread something from 30 years ago and tell the same jokes we told 30 years ago and hope for a laugh. I'm like, oh, not only is it annoying that there's all of this sexualized content, and it's not visually graphic for the most part, but
The
man, there's a
first one
lot.
was a little more visually graphic, a little bit
Yeah.
more, not.
But you're just sort of assaulted with a bunch of dirty jokes, and it's
That
like,
aren't funny.
Eddie, you're funny. You're funny. Don't, let's reach a little bit higher on that one. So if you hadn't already taken that one, I might have taken it. I was just looking at some of the things that we have published. We publish about 6 or 7 TV reviews each week. And there is a new show called Close Enough, which is an animated show. And sometimes I think we're tempted to give animated shows a pass. This is on HBO Max, so that's your first warning that you might be in problematic territory. It's basically about a young couple in their late 20s, early 30s raising a kid, and it's supposed to be a child raising kind of comedy. But it just, again, it succumbs to that, low-hanging, nasty fruit that it's like, close enough. No, it's not close enough.
It's not even close.
No, you're going to want that half hour back too. So
Okay.
That would be my skipper for.
Okay. And my must-see this week, I downloaded this based on our interview last week. And I saw maybe a half dozen other folks on one of my flights. I flew the Greyhound of the Sky, which was Spirit Airlines.
Southwest? Oh, Spirit. Yeah, there you go.
They nickel and dime you, but I got to say, their customer service was pretty good. And I had 2 flights. All of my flights were either on time and 2 were early. So, some of the bad rep that they've earned, maybe they're trying to turn back. But I got to tell you, bare bones, not comfortable seats. I asked the question on social media, if somebody, because of their largeness, takes up a third of your seat, should they pay a third of your ticket?
And who do they pay it to? The airline or you?
I'll take it, please.
I'll
I
take
don't
the
care.
money. I'll take the money.
I mean, really, when I'm sitting there and someone is on top of me, or because and she's elbowing me in the chest the whole time, it's tough. And they don't have internet and they don't have any place to plug in. So, but I came prepared. I downloaded the film, and the film that I downloaded was Yes Day, and it is just a family romp. It's not going to be nominated for anything other than maybe Pluggy's family film because it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the film. It was entertaining, kind of uplifting. A little, I laughed out loud a couple of times. Yes Day is something you can watch with the whole family.
Well, and Jennifer Garner, I mean, even in a bad movie or a just okay movie, she's a riot. She has this, she can do drama, but she can also do this comedic thing, right? And she's that plucky, slightly disheveled, well-intended, earnest, frazzled. I think as parents, we can all relate to those things, right? We have moments where it's like, I am trying to do the best I can here.
Yeah.
This is not working. I told my wife the other night, I said, this is a little bit grim. I said, on my gravestone, I tried. Okay. I tried. And it could be that I tried as good as I can do. All right. And this is sort of that, learning to balance the yes and the no. And the premise is she says no to her kids a lot. They compare her to world dictators. She's not happy about that.
And one moment, please, Adam, time out. Can I just say, as a parent, if you're not ever compared to a world dictator, you may not be doing your job right.
Well,
it is okay.
That's true. That's true. What do you mean we can't have a second dog? No.
Oh my gosh. Don't tell me that's a conversation in your house, because there has been a long-standing conversation in the Holtz home over getting a dog. Adam and his wife finally caved. Don't tell me they're asking for a second one
No, my
already.
dog. Okay. This is not related to entertainment or anything. Life,
And
okay?
yet it's entertaining.
We finally cave in and give my daughter the dog, right? But my wife is the first person to hold the puppy when we picked it up. and the dog bonded with my wife. And
Uh-oh.
my 12-year-old daughter has spent the last 6 months complaining, Mom got to hold the dog first and it didn't bond with me. We need a dog, and this time I need to hold it first so it bonds with me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no. Just no. At least for now.
It could just
No.
be the maternal hormones that come out, you know? It's a mom
I
thing.
don't know.
I
I don't
don't
like
know. Let me ask you something else, Adam. Would you ever have a yes day with your kids?
well, my kids would say when they want something, they just get me in a corner and it's yes day all the time. Like
Ah.
my wife told me the other night, she's like, you get to be good cop and I'm always bad cop. I'm like, works for me. I mean,
Yeah, I bet it does.
she was basically just saying, I need you to be a little bit meaner. So, my mom raised us and my dad too, but my mom, her philosophy was always, if there's not a really good reason to say no, don't. And I think there's a lot of wisdom there. And we pick our battles. We say no
Can't
to
die
the
on
things
every hill.
we really need to say no to, because there are some of those things. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're not doing that. I'm fighting the battle right now. My 12-year-old is the only one in her peer group who doesn't have a smartphone. And we have said 13, and she's about 6 or 7 months away.
I think in
And
some corners that's considered abusive.
well, she would agree with you. I don't know if you compared me to Hitler or Mao or Stalin yet, but we've held the line on that. And we make them take piano lessons, and they hate practicing. It's a battle every day. But we're like, someday you will appreciate being able to play the piano on demand.
Yeah.
Not this day, but someday. So anyway, we're way off in the weeds now. We should come back
And
to
that's okay. These are the conversations that movies bring us to.
yeah,
Parents
no,
saying, "Hey,
and
what about a
yes,
yes day?" And you
what
watch
about
the
a yes?
film Yes Day, and you see things that maybe if we have a yes day, there were some rules involved. It can't be something in the future. It can't be something that's going to hurt someone. It should probably be. Can't be something that's going to destroy something like the
Right,
interior of our car or or
right.
home, right?
We're home.
But it's a conversation, and that's where a good movie can get you thinking about more than just being entertained. Now, one thing I did want to end with is something in your blogs that you talked about in episode 68. Are you using tech's parental controls? As we
Mhm.
talked about some of the movies that maybe have some problems, as we talk about some of the problematic things that are out there on the internet and in entertainment pop culture. It's great that you're talking about parental controls. Not every parent knows about these things.
Yeah, virtually every device and streaming service that you have has the option to have some kind of parental controls engaged. And I sort of think it's like there's a little bit of a mystery to it if you haven't done it before. It's like, I don't know how to do that. But you go into Netflix and it takes you about 30 seconds to scroll through a couple of menus, and boom, you've got your control set up, and you realize, oh, that wasn't so hard. I can do this with my other stuff too. I
Okay.
sort of liken parental controls to driving a different car than you're used to. They're all slightly different, but they all do the same thing. They're all seeking to give you as a parent the ability to limit the content that your kids are potentially exposed to. And so just like you're used to your car's controls and you go on a trip and you get a rental car, it's like, well, where's the windshield wiper control at? And it maybe takes you a second to find it, but you find it because you've been driving cars your whole life. I think parental
There you
controls are a
go.
lot like that. And once you start using them, you realize, oh, we can do this. And I think the flip side of that conversation is using parental controls doesn't let you off the hook for being engaged with what your kids are watching, because there's still worldview issues to be dealt with. Maybe you get rid of the profanity and the sex and the nasty stuff you don't want them to see, but there can still be bad ideas in stuff that they're engaging with, even a PG or PG-13, or TV-14 show that you're going to want to talk about with them. So it's both and. Use the controls, but stay engaged and keep having conversations about this stuff.
I love that. And just hearing that sometimes on a show like this gives you, as you're watching or listening, parents, a reminder that, yeah, maybe you're doing it okay. Sometimes we want to, we can err on the side of protecting our kids so much that when they're out in the world, they're overwhelmed, they're scared by it, they're stunted by it, or they're so titillated by it that they go off the deep end. So, being
Right.
able to use some wisdom and, as you say, both protect your kids from stuff that I don't even want to see, and being able to
Right.
utilize some of the problematic things to start conversations, to talk about things, to help your kids to engage, because we're here to be in the world, even if we're not of the world, so to
That's
speak.
right. That's right.
That's a Sunday school moment for those of you
That's
who
right.
like
I
what
think
she's
that's
talking
from the
about.
Bible, right, Michelle?
Right there, right there. So, if you need some help navigating some of the pop culture, everything that you can find in movies and books and games, music, YouTube, you can see the most popular things and some things that you never even considered, for your pleasure, for watching and for knowing what your kids are engaged in, right there at pluggedin.com, where Adam is making sure we get the best information so we can navigate those things with our family. Because you know why? Because he's Adam Holtz and he's pretty cool.
I'm pretty cool. Plugging you into the movies, this is Adam Holmes.
You knew that was coming.
Well, and let me say too, Michelle, I work with a team of 4 other people, and we do it together. So it really is a team effort. I see some stuff, I write some stuff, but we have a terrific group of people who dig into this stuff week in and week out, so that you don't have to. You can know ahead of time, is this going to be problematic for my family? So come to Plugged In and check us out, and we'll give you what you need.
And you can always go to MyMichelleLive.com to get that connection, find out more, and watch our reviews every week with our friend Adam Holtz. Adam, thanks for joining us, hanging out with us, and have a great weekend, man.
I will do it, Michelle, and we'll talk again next week.
Absolutely, because that's what we do.
Everything you need to pack into the weekend in one podcast.
Everybody's working for the weekend.
It's the Weekend Review.